No, super no. Super no, yeah, super no.
All right, guys, you're all good to go.
Great.
Just a little hard to tell, but do you guys have quorum in the room?
We do not.
We have five.
Wait,
Don't we have one?
4, 5. We have, yes, yep, we're
Five,
5.
yes, five, Jesse.
Very
Okay,
good to go.
okay, great. Thank you. Welcome, everyone, to the March 10th Manhattan Community Board 4 Arts, Culture, Education, and Schools Committee meeting. MC4 has adopted a hybrid policy that can be found on our website. Board members are expected to attend meetings in person unless they have a disability and or an extraordinary circumstance. Excused members and members of the public will still be able to participate virtually. Members who are joining via Zoom must leave their cameras on. This meeting is being streamed live on our YouTube channel and a transcript is being recorded. So tonight we have a full agenda. We're going to begin with our public session. Oh, by the way, my name is Josephine Ishman. I'm one of the co-chairs, and this is Matt Green. He is also co-chair of this committee. So I'm going to turn it over to Matt for the public session.
Great. So welcome, everyone. So this portion of the agenda is open for the public to raise any issues. I do want to acknowledge Judy Harvest, who was at our meeting 2 months ago, to bring the art building on West 26th Street to our attention. It's up for sale, as I think most of us probably remember. And so Judy asked if she could come back. Absolutely, we appreciate you and the other folks from the building being here to give our committee an update on what's happened over the last several weeks, and just look forward to continuing to stay in touch, keep the lines of communication open, and as always, you know, we're here to help in any way that we can. So you are here in the room, so the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you all for having us come tonight. We really enjoyed that, and it's important to meet the people that are in charge of our community, which is really, really a vital community in West Chelsea. We have formed, our latest news is we formed the West Chelsea Artists Association, and Scott Olivobust is going to tell you about that tonight. And we are also investigating all the other avenues that we can in order to keep our studios where they are. I spoke to Anne Dept studio at the Department of Cultural Affairs about the project of staying in place, working in place for projects that she's working on, and she gave us some good advice. And we're hoping to set up a site visit. Matt and whoever else would like to come and see our studios and the building and how we work. We're also, interestingly enough, being courted by some neighboring buildings because they've heard our building is for sale, and there is evidently a lot of space available in West Chelsea for commercial purposes that is not being utilized. None of us really want to move. We love our building, we love our studio, and that is our #1 goal, and why we are banding together as a committee, as a team, which is a wonderful thing to do in any case in a building. But our goal is to stay where we are, if we can, and to find a benevolent purchaser, because they are really actively showing it and marketing it. We know because we see them coming in and out with groups of people. There were a bunch of rumors that it was in contract. We have found out that's not true. We really don't know. The higher ups aren't really communicating with us in a direct way. Everything is done by the elevator and telling the person who's in the hall like that. It's so without further ado, I'll introduce you to Scott, who's going to tell you about our association. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm just going to read a statement here just about the building and where we're at and ask for some help. So, good evening. My name is Scott McBoost. I'm a longtime artist and an art advocate and an organizer in West Chelsea. Thank you for the opportunity to come here tonight and to share some information about the building and the potential sale of the West Chelsea Art Building, which has addresses from 508 to 534. And it's a vital cultural center and building with artists, art galleries, nonprofit art organizations, and art-related businesses. For 3 decades, the building has served as a creative home to hundreds of artists, roughly around plus 200 now, helping to establish the West Chelsea as an international art district as it is today. However, with the pending of this building for sale, you know, that status is gonna be threatened, and our artist stronghold will possibly have demise. If the building is sold to redevelopment, our artists will face evictions, loss of studio, and loss of a creative ecosystem. And it will also be the beginning of the end of the West Chelsea Gallery District, which is it is the largest art gallery district in New York City as of now. What matters about it is the West Chelsea building is a home to artists since the beginning of the art scene and the movement, and we contribute to the culture and the economics, you know, in a large way. The artist, the impact is the artist in the gallery in the building also plays a crucial role in making Chelsea one of the most sought after contemporary art districts. It includes, you know, attracting collectors, tourists, and business investments. The potential loss of the building to gentrification would only displace the working artists, also will erase part of the identity of Chelsea. And I'm here actually to urge the community board to advocate for protection of this building as an art space to engage with the city agencies and elected officials to explore zoning and rezoning options, and also to issue a formal resolution using the preservation of artist space within the district, and working with the West Chelsea Artists Association so we can create some kind of plan to endure and continue affordability access for studio space. And the West Chelsea legacy as a leading art district is really at stake here, because the end of the West Chelsea building will be the end of Chelsea and the end of the art commerce that happens. And I want to thank you for my speak here.
Thank you, Scott. I appreciate it. Thank you, Judy, for coming back to our committee. Sounds like you've been making a lot of progress, organizing tenants. It's not easy work. So thank you for putting in that time and effort just to get people organized and sharing those updates with us. We certainly feel strongly about making sure that the studio stay intact as well. So please continue to keep our committee updated. But I wanted to just see if Jesse, we do have, I think, Council Member Botcher as a participant, I think, on this particular one. If you could see if he could be brought over, just to get an update, because I know his office, there was a letter that was sent out, I believe, and see if he has some, there it is. Hi, Council Member.
Hi, how are you?
Good, thanks for joining us.
Of course, I just wanted to come on and because I saw that I heard that this was going to be discussed at the beginning of the meeting. And I just wanted to come on and give a little bit of an update, start by thanking the community for rallying around the artists and the artist tenants at this building. I want to thank the tenants who've been organizing against the sale. We met with representatives of the building ownership and sent a very simple message, and that is that we are going to fight the sale of this building with every tool at our disposal, and that if they decide to go through with the sale, we're going to try to stop it, and so that it's in everyone's interest for us to work together to preserve the building as what it is and to preserve this valuable arts community in place in this building. The good news is that there was openness to discussing alternatives to a sale, including the idea of zoning changes that would allow the commercialization of the building that would keep all the artist tenants in place. What that looks like, they're now putting together ideas and they're going to come back to us, and we are meeting with them next week. So it was promising. Let's see what they come back with, but I want you to know that my colleagues and I, we had State Senator Brett Hoyman Siegel, Assemblymember Tony Simone, State Borough President Mark Levine, and Mark. We had Jerry Nadler's Chief of Staff on, and we were all united and sending a very strong message. This is a big priority because the previous speaker laid out what the stakes are here. So I just wanted to give that update to folks.
Thank you, Councilmember. Appreciate your advocacy and the other electeds joining you in that call. And thank you as well for keeping our committee updated. And we would welcome this issue back once you have a better sense of these alternatives regarding the building and sort of what's being looked at. We would appreciate just being updated as soon as you have more information to share on that. And I'm sure the tenants would love to be involved as well, and making sure like we all continue to stay in good communication, because I think that's something that we're hearing a lot that needs to happen, and progress is being made. So
I just have a question. Does anybody else have any questions first? Okay, let me just start. I'm wondering if we should consider, getting this, a letter out in regards to this, our concerns about the potential sale of this building, the value of it to the Chelsea community and the artists that are living and working here. I don't know if we need to get into the details because it seems like things are changing. Councilmember Botcher, there's some very interesting ideas on the table. I don't know if we need to get into all of that, but at least to voice our concern and our support that this building needs to remain open. Any other questions, or how does that sound?
Sounds good.
Nice. Okay, someone I think needs to,
you need to make a motion.
someone else needs to make a motion.
We can't make that as co-chair, so.
I'll make the motion for the letter and
And so there's second. Okay, great. Okay, so we'll work on drafting the letter.
Yes.
And thank you.
Oh, I'm sorry.
And
Did you have something you wanted to say?
I just had a quick question. How many tenants are involved in this? How many in the building have you reached out to and are aware of what's going on?
yes,
I could give you a little, the building, just as some quick stats, it's 85% occupancy of artist and art related buildings. It's 5% of nonprofits, and then the remaining 2 or so percent is just other businesses.
Right.
There's 211 studio spaces. There's over 200 plus artists. There's a number of spaces that may have a main tenant and some subtenants. So I'm guessing we're talking about 225 plus.
Yeah.
Artists.
But in your organization, just tenants association or artists,
Well,
who you're reaching out to, how big is your list? How many
well,
people?
I just started this about a week ago, so I'm looking to have at least 50%. Our first meeting with the trustees was about 50% of, over 100 tenants came to our meeting on January 14th
Okay.
to learn about it. So now we have about 28.
There were no, this is a very big gallery
Yeah,
space, and there were no seats left. It was
okay,
packed.
so you're keeping them updated and
Yes,
they know about tonight and they're going to
Yes,
know about,
yes.
okay, so you have a large mailing list.
yes, I mailed to all the tenants in the building about this event, about speaking.
Okay.
And I'm trying to now, there's about 28 members that have registered. It's, artists, it's a long process to get them to but I'm looking to at least get 50% enrolled.
So you have 28 on your list.
28 currently, and every day.
Out of a couple hundred. Okay, so maybe a hand flyering or something door to door is a way to get them.
I originally did that,
Yeah.
I'll continue to do those.
Okay.
I can tell by the attendee list, there's 17 people here from the public, which is probably a lot of folks from your
Yes.
building, I would imagine. So,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Our first tenant meeting, we invited the foundation lawyer, the state lawyer, and the manager of the building, and they came. It was the 14th. It was the night after I came here with Jason from the building as well. So we came here on the 13th. We had a meeting on the 14th. We weren't sure who was going to show up, how many would, or even if the foundation would send a representative, and they did. The two gentlemen who represented the state and foundation, both lawyers. And we were surprised. We put out chairs and they were all full. We just had signs up in the building and we went under the door, but we did not have much time. We found out December 16th by reading a newspaper article. Christmas came, New Year's came, nobody was around. We had 160 people.
At least.
And the building staff as well. A lot of the workers from the building who've been there since 1975. Wow.
And
So,
they're very concerned.
very close.
Yeah.
Is the total staff union?
Yes.
But there's also a sense of family. Everybody knows everybody. We've been there for decades.
Right.
You know, I've been there 3 years at least.
Yeah.
Perhaps more. Others have been there for longer.
So there's a sense of community in the.
Absolutely, it is.
Yeah.
It's a very vibrant community and it's a very warm community. This building is totally unique. It's not like any other building I've ever been in. Everybody knows each other. You know, we're all friendly. We're all very concerned about each other's well-being.
Yeah.
So it's a very important community. It's a community that has also, as Scott and Julie have said, has transformed, has been part of the transformation of the area.
Yeah.
You know, some galleries opened up there first, and then there are artist studios opened up. We're still behind building, the massive building down the road, it's 620. And Gloria's ambition, Raymond Nathani's ambition, was to transform this building into a center for the arts, a center for the artistic community, and to make it a vital hub in New York City. And they did that. Unfortunately, Gloria and her will stated her desire for this to continue. She didn't make it a legal obligation, and that's the stand. And so the trustees have turned around and said, well, you know, we'd like to sell the building to have the funds to use for other things. But that wasn't Gloria's wish.
Yeah.
Right. Let me just cut, Ella had her hand. Ella, do you have a quick question about this particular topic?
Yeah, I wanted to ask about if there's any other artist, tenant associations that we can also like leverage in West Chelsea. Like, is there a larger one besides the one that you guys started?
But I want to just make a point. In the news, there is a nonprofit church art organization, which is the church that just made the news. They're in the same position that we are in. They had a lot of celebrities come and to raise money for that. They are it is the custodians of the church looking to sell the building and to eject, you know, it has a school theater, it's been in that part. So they're an identical match to us that as of Friday hit the news all over because of the number of celebrities that are supporting their efforts and to raise money. So we're not the only ones anymore. There's in the gentrification, but it is the loss of a huge cultural and artistic that New York is known for worldwide. The 1 museums in the world, the #1 Broadway shows that, you know, you're talking about kind of getting rid of that. And then we bring roughly about $170 billion to New York City. That's, you know, we're not we have mega input and financially, so it's a good piece.
Yeah, and we'll make sure to capture that in our letter, that this is also, you know, it's an economic issue, and we'll be sure to capture those comments. To make sure.
And also it's open, people walk in there, you know, the public, you walk in and you can go watch, instead of going to a gallery with a finished show.
Yeah.
Which is beautiful in Chelsea, you just walk in and you can wander around and go into their studios. I mean, I've been in their studios, I've attended one of the studios, and you know, when I'm there, tourists come.
Yeah.
People from Argentina were there last week, I mean, it's not only that I was in your
I have an
studio.
open door policy.
A lot of us that do, and so it's a unique to see people actually painting or sculpting, whereas you don't in the galleries, so you get both.
Let's take one more question and then,
Pat?
yeah,
Sorry Sorry to interrupt. Do you have someone online with their hand raised? And I think we're getting there, but I just wanted to be
Yeah,
cognizant of time.
we'll
with
come to
2:08.
that person right after, next, so, yeah, if you could bring Jackie over after, David speaks and have his question.
Have you considered if they do put this on sale, to each of you buy this and make it sort of like an artistic Mitchell-lama? I mean, I'm really using bad words, but I mean,
It was a dream, I can tell you, it's a dream, but, they're asking $170 million for the building. They, have 200 studios, we have to divide up the square footage, I'm also have a real estate background as well as being a fine artist, so.
so you know better than
I
I.
know, you have to, it would be kind of like a co-op or a condo, there would have to be, the attorney general would get involved, there would be shares, there would be. Yeah, it's complicated, it's not impossible, but I don't know out of the 200 something artists, how many people have $1 million plus to buy their space. The one, I mean, to make what, the pie in the sky dream would be that it was live workspaces like West Beth or something like that, which would be
Yeah.
a dream come true. But the truth is that, I think that they want to sell this building now because they think that in a few years it could be rezoned residential, and so they're hanging out because we bring in approximately $15 million a year in rent. Over 10 million of that is profit. It's not a very expensive building. It was bought for approximately $500,000 in 1975. There's no mortgage. But the truth of the matter is, we don't want to disappear like the things that happened in Soho or Chinatown or the Lower East Side. I mean, Chelsea is, this is really important. We bring, as we've mentioned, but not just economically because of the restaurants or people buying the art, but the art shippers, the framers, the box guys on 26th Street. Economically, we support small businesses, big businesses, and try to support ourselves along the way. It is a user-friendly building, as you mentioned. You can come in anytime. It's open 24 hours a day. Well, on the weekends they close now at 6, but yeah, if doors are open to a studio or a gallery, it's user-friendly. It's not, you don't feel intimidated like someone might feel walking into a blue chip gallery or something. We talked, we don't make you just sign a book and look at the art. We're happy to talk about it. And thanks to Scott, we do the open studio things and we meet all kinds of nice people. So
Yeah.
you'll come visit us.
Yeah, let's stay in touch about scheduling a site visit to come by. Okay, Jesse, we're ready for Jackie.
Okay.
She's on her hand raised. Hi, Jackie.
Video on, 1 second. All right. Wow, I can't get the video on. Wait.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, you can hear me? Cause,
Yeah, fine, you can go ahead.
okay, just wanted to get that video, okay. 1 second. Hello. Oh, it turns on. I don't know why it's done on. Okay, I'll just talk to you this way.
Good place.
Okay. And so in terms of it being a like a really safe and a really friendly, like secure building to make artwork in, I just wanted to talk to that little, because most of the time I'm there all night, or many of the times I'm there all night. And a lot of commercial spaces, either don't provide services or don't allow you to come when it's really late. And I just want to say that I have felt 100% safe there. So painting has been fine. Bathrooms are in the hall, no problem. And that is worth everything to me. I mean, it's open during the day when people want to come and see work, or when I want to get things, prepared in my studio and have some help. But most of my decision-making in my work is done at night. And to have a place that feels really secure is tremendously important, including things like if there are other people there, everyone's very respectful. Like if I'm in the middle of painting, people they'll nod and say hi, but they won't interrupt. If I'm not, then it's great. And we could talk, and the other way around too. And there are lots of places where people don't understand that about the art process. So I've been there 28 years, which is hard to believe, or 26 years, something like that. And even if I were to leave tomorrow, this has been an important part of my artist life in New York. It's made it possible for me to work here. So I just wanted to say that.
Thank you, Jackie. We appreciate you joining us this evening and raising your voice on this issue. And we'll certainly take sort of the safety of the building into consideration as we write a letter about this and how important that is to the art making process for not only you, but other artists in the building. I don't see, unless Jesse, you see any other hands raised on this topic?
We're seeing a bunch of hands. I just want to be cognizant of time. We have two agencies who we've invited as well. So it's how do you want to handle it? But yeah, we have three hands raised.
Okay, so what I would ask is people who have their hand raised, if you have something new to add to the conversation about the building, if we could avoid repeating what's already been said about the history and sort of the state, but if you could talk, if you have something new to add, we are welcome to hear that, but let's try to keep our comments to a minimum if possible, because we do have a busy agenda. So let's try to get through some of these, and let's bring over Joan. I see her hand.
Yeah, Joan and Mr. Lynch. I have Mr. Lynch. Go ahead.
Okay.
There. Hey, got me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Excellent. Thank you guys, the committee here for meeting with us, and Scotto and Judy and all the people there. I think I see Paul Michael as well. I'm a new member of the building, and that's in the 5 to 6 year range. And Jackie's comment on the safety of the building got me really thinking also about, and we've talked about all the artists of the building. There's another part of the building that I think is a super important part, and from my experience has been an equally, an equal part of why I choose to stay here. And that's the maintenance and the building management. And granted, there are some things that they have to, keep under wraps because of, the dynamics that they're playing with their bosses or whatever. But I think it's not just, artists. We play a significant part in percentage here. But there's a lot of other people that have been working here for 10, 20, 30 plus years, and they're all family as well. So I just wanted to give a shout out, how expanded this is. This isn't just, us. So
yeah, thank you, Mr. Lynch. No, it's an ecosystem of artists and people that are also employed at the building. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yep. Is there anyone else?
We have Joan.
Okay, great. Hi, Joan. Joan, can you hear us?
Oh, okay, there we go.
Hi.
Hi. Yeah, I'm one of the artists in the building also. And my take is, well, I was an educator for 30 years in the public high school system. And I gotta say, I've seen more people from all walks of life, poor people, young people from all over. There was a person who was visiting my studio once a week for a while from Brownsville, Brooklyn. This building is very unique in the sense that people from all over the world, all walks of life, can come in. It's totally educational. I've had people ask me how, what's going on with art? How is this done? What does this mean? And they said it's an education for them. And part of Gloria's mission was the fact that she wanted it to be educational. That's like one of her main talking about points, was that it had to be educational, to keep that part of the building. And the other part of this is that I gotta say, why would anybody live here and pay these exorbitant rents and even want to visit Chelsea if there's nothing special or unique to offer? If pockets of New York continue to get decimated, why does anyone want to put up with all the difficulties of New York, visiting, living, etc.? I've lived here for 30 years. Trash on the streets, driving, parking, public transportation, everything is difficult. If you don't have unique things like this, why be here? Okay. The only people who are going to come in are going to go to a show and go home. But this is a place, Chelsea is a place to visit. This building is unique. It's different. And it offers an incredible educational opportunity. And as somebody else said, people from all over the world walk through, and people from every background come in, and we are teaching them things. So that's my 2 cents.
Appreciate it. So our committee will be writing a letter. We'll be capturing these comments. Thank you. And we will be in touch. And so please, we'll set up that site visit at some point, hopefully soon.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much for coming.
Real quick,
Yes.
about this letter, are you gonna provide any recommendations, or are you just giving your summaries?
No, we have to draft it first, but typically it wouldn't provide recommendations, but at least ensuring that the studio spaces are preserved and whatever happens, and we'll talk about the issues raised. Yeah.
Great, thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Okay, so we are going to be moving on to.
Yes, you
Yeah, what are you saying?
Yes.
We're going to be moving on to our second item, and I want to thank the agencies who are here in attendance for being here, and also for your patience as we get through the public session. And so with our first item, and we have the Department of Education to talk about school enrollment and capacity and priorities for the upcoming fiscal year. So
So we have Serge on there.
Serge, hello.
Yes.
Good evening.
Maisha.
Maisha.
And also Kevin Moran from Department of
Great.
Education as well.
Great. Welcome, Kevin. Welcome, Maisha. Welcome, Serge.
Thank you, guys. So I just want to introduce Kevin Moran, who is the Executive Director of our Division of Operations. The questions that were forwarded to us, Kevin is really the expert as far as gathering the information about the buildings throughout the city, let alone Manhattan. So he's here on the line to, number one, answer any questions that you have. But Jesse, I did forward to you our responses, and I hope that was beneficial, and I hope that satisfies the questions that were sent to us. But hopefully this is an opportunity for any follow-up or any questions you have. And I know, Kevin, if you want to give a brief intro, and Maisha as well. Kevin, we can't hear you.
Yeah. Maisha, would you mind introducing
Sure.
yourself?
I'll- Sure. We'll wait for Kevin. Yeah, no problem. Good evening, everyone. Maisha Taylor Mike. I'm the Intergovernmental Affairs Borough Manager for New York City Department of Education or New York City Public Schools. Thank you to Serge and Kevin for taking the time out to log on today. And because I'm teeter-tottering between a joint public hearing and this call, but just wanted to say hello. And thank you, Jesse, for your patience. I heard that you're happy to have us, and we're happy to be here. So thank you, and to this committee also. Thank you so much. Kevin probably logged back on.
Kevin, can you hear us?
Serge, could you do me a favor? You did provide that on Friday, and I got that to folks, but there's a good chance folks maybe didn't get to completely review the
Okay.
document that you had sent. So what Serge sent us, and it's in your Dropbox for the committee, is kind of updated responses from the budget requests that we had sent as a full board. So I think if you guys saw last month, we got the preliminary responses back from all of our budget requests, in particular DOE's requests. We wanted to follow up with them and see if we could find a better, more information and better clarity as to some of the requests that we had made. So I talked with Maisha for a bit, and she was able to, I think, work with Serge, and so he provided some further answers. But if maybe if you can provide some context to those answers, that'd be helpful. And I think it would be good to maybe Matt and Josephine maybe take this time, because we haven't had actually this many folks from DOE in the room, I think, for quite a while. Maybe go over the process that you guys do in terms of gaining those responses, those requests. So I mean, we could maybe find a way of working closer together as we go forward on this end with them, and so we can hopefully move some more of these requests into the win column.
Sure. So let me just give you a brief description while Kevin is trying to log on. As you can well imagine, we get.
Serge, I don't know if you can hear me now.
Yeah, we can. Perfect, Kevin. Go ahead.
This is what happens when you upgrade your phone. I got a new whatchamacallit, and now I can't log in. I got to figure it out. But Serge, if you want, I could go over the list and then talk about the process, if that's helpful.
That'd be great,
Jesse.
Kevin. Absolutely.
Yeah. So essentially, there's just number one around facilities enhancements. All of our buildings get surveyed every year. There's a building condition assessment survey done by the SCA, a third party independent that does an assessment of every feature, architecturally, electrically, mechanically, and basically scores every item from a fire alarm to a PA system to stair risers, you name it, front to back, HVAC. And ultimately every year we get that result. That result informs our capital plan. If there are places that need to be replaced, upgrades, that goes into the capital plan and it's funded. Say if it's a roof replacement, a window replacement, a parapet replacement, full repointing, these things all get generated through that process. Outside of the regular annual process by which we keep our buildings safe, warm, airtight, watertight, we actually go ahead and we do more with Resoway grants. It's a lot of our elected officials that fund, and they say, look, I want to give $500,000 because this student group reached out about a new science lab, or I want to give $250,000 because I want to do a new library. And so those process, they work a little different. They run concurrent, but they run different. On the Resoway process, the School Construction Authority gives us an LOW number to proceed. We get a scope. We get basically a budget. We bring it to the OMB team for a sign off that it's capitally eligible, and the OMB gives us a CP, or certificate to proceed. Now we cut a purchase order, and the vendor bills against that. And so that's been something we did over the last year, a major process improvement. That is not something we were doing previously. We were advancing expense dollars and trying to true up every year, a process that didn't work well for our contractors, didn't work well for our school communities and our administrators. So it's something we changed, and in the last 6 months, we've pushed out about $63 million in capital purchase orders. So those projects are far and wide. So that's what should happen. And ultimately, schools do have some discretionary money as well. And so we're trying to make it easier for principals to manage within that space. So on these specific questions, the lab school, the middle school, they have 4 bottle fillers. One is in need of repair. That will be repaired. We have a work order for that. Next down on the museum school, same question. Did they have water bottles? They do have 4, and they are all working. And by the way, just so you know, the bottle fillers are not traditionally like a cheap installation. A bottle filler basically takes out a previous existing water fountain. It does involve potentially ceramic work, certainly plumbing, and it also requires electric work. Right. And so there's potentially even some abatement. So a job where someone says this should be limited in scope, it actually isn't. It's very involved. It involves multiple trades to change out an existing water fountain to go to a bottle filler. So, but those are great projects to be funded. We've been working with OMB on any questions if anybody has that. Same thing at PS 212. There was a question, do they have bottle fillers? Right now, they only have 2. They're both available and functional on the second floor. But again, something we could look at if folks want to add additionals. You have Lab Middle School, MO70 and 312. They want to replace all doors and locks in the classrooms on the first and fourth floor. I do know this, that all those doors are functional and operable, but we could survey them if folks feel that they should be rekeyed or possibly replaced. I know they run in the tens of thousands of dollars. That they're not very cheap in terms of changing out the door buck or changing out the door itself. So we'll look into that if folks want to see the Lab Middle School get new classroom doors. Bayonne Rustin, fund and upgrade replacement of windows. All windows will be surveyed and prioritized for repair. Right now, I mentioned the BCAS survey. Last year, they were rated at a 3. A 3 won't get you to a place where it's automatically a capital replacement. So what I'm going to do is follow up specifically with this building. Our team is looking at it now to see if there is a capital threshold we pass. So you have PS 212, it says fund and upgrade replacement of windows. That capital replacement is scheduled. That is scheduled. We anticipate that to start in school year 2026. Urban Assembly Gateway School, request for a new PA system. That is currently operable, but we will evaluate it again if there is a need to refer it to the School Construction Authority for replacement. Something we could do. But all these are helpful. I'll take questions if you have. Our side of the house at the public school system operations, we represent the school buses, the school buildings, the school food, the school emergencies, and the school space and how we share space and our central administrative building. So any of those things, if Jesse had mentioned, if there are things you want to email or call or set up separate meetings, all of those teams. If you want to talk about our emergency preparedness, I have a whole team that we can meet and do that. If you want to talk about our school food operations and the cafeteria enhancement, the experience enhancement is really popular. We could do that. School busing, same thing with VIA and how we're tracking kids on the school buses and how we're doing a better job in routing and communicating. So those are the operational pieces that I'm managing for the team. But those are the specific cases and questions on facilities. So I'm happy to take questions.
Okay, thank you so much for that, Kevin. I have just 2 questions for you.
Sure.
So on the lab, the locks on the doors, we
Yes.
keep hearing about this. So are you saying that to get locks on, you would actually have to change the whole door? There's no way of just changing the lock or putting locks on there?
So right now they're all functional. If you want them rekeyed, they're all sergeant locks. We could probably just rekey them if that's the request. But the custodial team, the custodial team said they're operable. But if there's a request to rekey, let me take that back to the team and have them talk directly to the principal and the custodian and make sure we're talking the same thing. Because that was the follow-up I got was, hey, look, they're all operable. We can survey first and 4 to see if there's something for possible replacement. But I'll do that. That's the takeaway for me.
Okay, that's great. Thank you so much for that. And then on the busing, we keep hearing these kind of nightmare busing stories, how buses don't show up, all of that. What's happening with that? I mean, is there any improvement on contracts? Are you still having issues getting bus drivers? How's that moving along?
Yeah, everything's, we're moving along quite well, get better every day. Well over 90% of our drivers are logging into VIA. We encourage parents to log in so they could track their bus in real time. This way they'll know exactly where it is. We handle a pretty good volume of calls over the last decade, and they're down significantly. We like to deal on specific escalations. One day of a missed bus is a hardship for a family, but if it misses 5 times or it's late or there's a breakdown, those are all real issues, and those are ones we take very seriously. So we designed a new way, and by the way, our call time at the call center, if people had to make a complaint, is down under a minute now. A wait time is under a minute, so they can get called and resolved. We also did something for families. It's almost like a ChatGPT where you go online, you create a ticket right from our website. It also has a tracking feature, and people would say, well, I called in a help desk ticket and I didn't get a call back, or I have multiple tickets, it's late again. People can go right in off their phone or device and just click it, and then actually our team has to track and follow it up. So we're pleased with that. We're rolling out the route manager, which is the biggest thing that we did in this last GPS procurement after local law 32, 33, and 34. We had a lot of data work to do to change the systems by which we track our drivers, our attendants, our students IEPs, our students, any travel issues. So once we did that, now we're rolling out our route manager this spring, which is going to be the route, dynamic routing that happens every night so that you don't have to wait 5 to 10 days to get a route. And there's dynamic routing in the process. If there's an accident on the roadway, there's traffic avoidance as well. So that's the big thing we're pushing out this spring. But I would encourage all families to get on the Nixa app. The final module, which is ready and it's not ready, we're going to roll it out when we think it's right, It's ready to go off the shelf, but is actually real-time student tracking. So a student, should they're choosing, could actually badge on a school bus and badge off, should they're choosing. This is a behavior management thing. We understand. There could be lanyards, there could be badges on the book bag, it could be a card, but we do have that ability to then zero down on travel time, distance and travel time, which is the biggest thing I think for families is saying, look, I only live, 2 miles away. Why does it take 25 minutes to get there, kind of thing, right? So busing has been improving. The website is chock full of information. It's got a what's new section on our transportation page. It's worth checking out, but I would say the number one thing that we're doing differently is communicating better with where parents need to know where their kids are. So, but yeah, and the school bus contracts you touched on, they expire this June. So stay tuned.
Okay, I'm sure
We'll
there's
see.
gonna be a lot.
We're an extension, by the way, we're in like an extension state of mind right now in terms of what's going to happen next.
Okay, gotcha. What would you say is the average wait time for a student to get a bus route? Like say, we have quite a few students that are living in temporary housing, and so.
Yeah, we got that down. I think that's down less a week now. Daniela Inga from our team, she's absolutely wonderful and it's heading the team and making sure we do this. That to make sure all that are routed is going to improve dramatically across all categories. But this was in particular a focus for ours, student temporary housing, foster students, any kid, with temporary disrupted housing supports. We want to make sure that's a focus area. And so if there's an issue out there that you're seeing it's taking too long, we've created rideshare scenarios too, which is a burden, I understand, on families to be present on the route, but that gave some flexibility where that was day of. And so people can actually, get a service, and parents don't have to lay out of pocket if they needed to take a car service or foster provider, or you name the scenario where we need to get a bus in place and it's not in place. We're obligated to do that. We can give rideshare in the short term. But I would say the route manager is the thing that's going to make us do it where it's not 5 to 10 days, where it's like rolling into the system overnight through our batch downloads. So that wasn't happening before because the data management systems didn't allow for that, but that's the future of our routing and putting kids on routes.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
I've got just a quick question. So, hi Kevin, nice to meet you, and it's great to have you on this call, and very nice to see sort of like a more nuanced response to some of these questions, because when we get sort of the preliminary response to our budget request, it's often can't accommodate, don't support, can't accommodate, don't support. So it's nice to actually get a little more, like the information that you provided is incredibly helpful. And so it just helps us as we sort of put together our own budget needs. So to Jesse's point, I just kind of wanted to take just a few minutes to talk about sort of what we do as a community board. So every year we put together a budget and statement of district needs. And as part of that, our committee worked very closely with our schools, with our PTAs, and with our school communities to figure out sort of what are the top both expense and capital needs that they have at their schools. And so we start compiling that in the late summer, early fall. We meet as a committee to prioritize those different capital requests. And then that gets voted on by the full board and gets put into a document, which is then sent to the city agencies for feedback. And so we really do appreciate getting sort of those nuanced responses that you provided in that email, because it helps us understand, challenges that you're facing, things that are in the pipeline that are being done, completed projects that we had no idea about, other priorities that you're hearing about that we're not hearing about, because we know principals can't respond to every single request from you and from us and from the city council members. So, it's helpful to just understand sort of what you're hearing as well. So with all that said, I just wanted to kind of give you sort of our process. We're going to do this again in the late summer, and then when the schools are back in session in the fall, we'll start to do our outreach again to figure out what's been done and what's sort of still on the table as far as their capital needs. So my question is more about, and I don't know, Kevin, if this is something that you would be able to answer, but really around like enrollment and capacity. We do know that the state has a law about class size and reducing that. So I'm just wondering, like, from DOE's perspective and our district, if you can be specific to our district, if you have any insight that you could share with our committee about sort of our numbers in terms of seats and what's available and challenges that might be happening over the next several years as this as schools get into compliance with this new law?
Yeah, that's a phenomenal question. We have now previously surveyed all of our schools with our principals, and folks went out and actually looked at every building, looked at every space, and kind of bucketed schools tier 1 and tier 2s, and what could you do in the short term, and where would you need more capital construction. So for us, the categories are distilling will need obviously a multi-pronged approach to address class size, and so whether it's a programmatic discussion around how we session a school, what spaces we're converting that were previously not being used actively for instruction, that could be. There's obviously the capital portion of that, like, are we looking at annex scenarios? Are we looking at overflow scenarios? And so there's just many parts to the class size working group. There's also the staffing parts, right? So it's just not enough to say, we have available classrooms. You need ultimately staff, commensurate staff to go with it. So I would say we can do something with the district specifically, with the class size working group and with the community board, and say, here are our areas where we're in compliance, close to being out of compliance, and in a couple year look ahead will be out of compliance. And that could help, I think, inform your capital plan as well, how you're thinking about things, and where are the resources available and what resources do we need to be responsive? Because it's a very exciting conversation, right? You got to figure out, it's a problem we have to solve, but it's not something that we can't all put our heads together on a solution on. So I'll ask that my team come back, and I think between Maisha, Serge, and myself, we can go back to the class size working group and see, can we set up a separate meeting just on this topic alone and get you from the survey perspective to the enrollment and the trends, the solutions, and then the look ahead. I think that would be a worthwhile meeting to have.
That would be amazing. Yeah, that would be wonderful. Thank you. Thank you so much, Kevin.
Sure.
Okay, to the committee, Ella?
Actually, the badging conversation was really interesting as it relates to buses, because I'm a substitute teacher. And I realize that sometimes for some schools, it literally takes me 10 minutes. It's a very manual process to check every student in every class. And when you're talking about 45 minutes and that part of it is taken, like 5 to 10 minutes, it just feels like such a waste of time. And I understand like chronic absenteeism and all of that, that's a very important issue, but I feel like with technology, there's gotta be an easier, more automated way to do this.
Absolutely. And I can add to this. This is not a compulsory or a mandatory activity. These are moments in time where if a family wants to track travel time, it's no different from OmniTap, the technology, right? It's not like the CAS cards, even when you go into a school building and you scan your way into the school when the kids go with ID cards, but it's the technology. That's my point. We're saying we actually have that module available. We haven't rolled it out. We're wrestling with that. When and if it's a good time to actually have, like I said, kids could be wearing lanyards. They could have it on their jacket sleeve. They could have it in their book bag, or they could tap, or, eventually put it on their phone and just tap as they go by. And so, yeah, this is not something we're rolling out immediately, but it is built. And we could draw on it if folks want to know more about time traveled, because I think that's the finite part. We're going to actually be able to do something different when the route starts. But then it won't be specific to each kid unless they're actually, like if you think about a stop to school environment where multiple kids get on at the same time, you wouldn't be able to draw exactly if it was Kevin or Jesse or Serge who got on at that stop. If there's no indicator, no one takes attendance, to your point. So something to think about. But yes, if we start rolling it out, we'll come back to you with an update. We bring back an update, but it is something to think about.
My question, Kevin, is actually leveraging that for attendance, for classroom attendance.
Yeah, we haven't synced. Well, that's an interesting question. Let me not speak for my programmers. Let me come back to you.
Okay.
Yeah, because we did have a fob key idea at one point that was even easier. But as an attendance record, I'll come back to you on that.
I just have a follow-up question on enrollment. Do you all have enrollment projections for the schools in CB4, particularly the elementary schools? I guess one of my concerns is that in our 5 elementary schools, we have about 600 students that were seeking asylum, and I don't know what's happening with that come the fall. So that's a significant number of students, and as you know, all of that ties into funding. So I'm wondering Do you have projections for this fall or what's happening?
Kevin, I'll step in. I did reach out to our enrollment team and Superintendent McGuire, but they couldn't be on tonight. So I let Jesse know we can circle back with some of those questions you had around enrollment and perhaps come on for the next meeting. So that the superintendent, who I know you work with very closely, is able to answer those questions for you.
All right, great, thank you.
Jesse.
I mean, I defer to anybody else in the room or Wendy online in terms of if there's any. Okay. I first of all, I just wanted to say thank you. I will say, I think, and Josephine and Matt can agree to this. We have not had this level of engagement with DOE and for a very long time, and I really appreciate Maisha being so responsive, and Kevin and Serge with all of the information tonight, and Serge, your email prior to that. So I'll just harp on one thing. One thing I wanted to say thank you for all the agreeing to come back already. We really appreciate that. But I will highlight what Matt has raised, and I know don't expect an answer tonight, but we do this every year. This committee, and when I say we, I mean this committee. I actually don't do very much of it, but this committee works really hard to try to pull together these budget requests and these needs from principals. We reach out to principals, we have the conversations, we reach out to PTAs, we have a conversation with our superintendent. And so the preliminary responses are usually the most actually fruitful, because by the time we get to the executive responses, it's just OMB, and OMB just says yes or no without any other explanation. And so I would just express to you guys, I know everybody is very stretched thin there, and responding to community boards budget responses, I know should not be the priority in terms of educating our children. But I will just say it gets difficult to really feel like whether we are making a difference if the responses are always going to be no, or basically we can't accommodate, and it's not going to happen. And so I think more conversations like this is really helpful. And maybe we can't change the initial response from the document as much as we could. But I think if we could do the more follow-up like this on a regular basis, but particularly when we get the preliminary budget responses back, which is usually in February. This would be great to do on a yearly basis, or maybe twice a year, right before we start to really submit them as well. So we know what the realities are about submitting a particular response. So I think that's really great. So I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Jesse.
Absolutely. I will suggest one thing. Perhaps, I know you all have consultations in early fall, correct? Like the budget consultations. Maybe you can request that Department of Education is present. I've rarely see that agency being at the table. So perhaps that's something that you can do. That way you can flush this stuff all out before you get around to this season of the year. Maybe that's a suggestion.
We would love that, Maisha. I'm going to hold you to it.
It's above my pay grade, but okay, I'll try.
I mean, we have, Jesse, just to add to your comment, we have made ourselves available last couple of years. I mean, to your point, it has been inconsistent, but this past year we have made ourselves available on a borough basis. But again, we want to try to narrow. We definitely want to try to drill down to each community board to make sure you get your nuanced answers. So, my particular list of responsibilities will be shifting soon, where I'll have more time to actually dedicate to this. So I'll definitely not be a strange face to you and to the other community boards across the city. So I just look forward to make sure that we make ourselves available.
We appreciate it, Serge, immensely. And the borough board consultations are are obviously helpful. I think it's hard sometimes though, when we're just talking about a borough-wide issues, when, we're asked to give very specific school, school by school requests. So, but I appreciate that. And one other thing, I just want the committee to know, I raise this as just a highlight, just to keep people informed. I believe last committee meeting was, we're working on an environmental issue at the Beacon High School. And I just wanted to tout that Maisha has also been very helpful in organizing and coordinating that. And so I just wanted the committee to know that is still on the radar, and Maisha's and the Eric Botcher's office is working on that.
Great. Thank you, Jesse. Is there any other questions for DOE? We'll see them again soon, so we'll have plenty of time to ask our follow-up questions. But we do appreciate you being here and taking time out of your evening, and look forward to seeing you at a future meeting. Thank you all so much.
Thank you all.
Thanks,
Thank you all. Have a good night.
Have a good night, everybody.
Okay, and then moving on to item number 3, DOT, Art Partners Initiative. Thank you for being here.
Of course, thanks for the invitation. I'm going to share my screen. Think I should be able to do that.
Yeah, you can do that, Angela.
Great. Okay, are you seeing an image right now?
Yes,
We are.
it is up.
Amazing. Okay, so my name is Angelique Vizcarrondo-Boy, and I'm the director of NYC DOT Art. So that's the art program that the New York City Department of Transportation has. The program has been going on since, sorry, I'll just stay here. The program has been going on since 2008. I am relatively new to the team. I've been on almost exactly a year tomorrow. We have a small team, 2 directors and 2 project managers. And since 2008, we've been able to install over 475 different kinds of public art installations throughout all 5 boroughs. And that includes a lot of things. I'll show you some of that in a second. We do temporary art, and the way that we define temporary art is up to 11 months. Most of the installations that we do last between 3 to 6 months, with some going all the way up to those 11 months. And so I'm gonna go to the next. What we're aiming to do with our program is there's a few things. We want to activate corridors, want to create a more engaging urban landscape through public art. We're also trying to create meaningful connections with communities, with community stakeholders. A lot of the work that we do is with business improvement districts or local organizations. We're also trying to support communities' initiatives to try to improve the quality of life of their members, but also support artists by providing funding directly to them through a series of open calls that we do throughout the year. And we also are just looking to collaborate with partner organizations throughout the city, and even outside of the city, but especially throughout the city. And so last year alone, we did 41 temporary art installations on the map. It's on the right for me. You can see all the different places where we put these installations. We work with 19 different partner organizations, and we did over 72,000 square feet of asphalt art murals, which I would say it's our bread and butter. We do a lot of asphalt art murals. So that means that there's murals going down on asphalt. It's not on roadways, so we don't paint on active roadway. We only paint on fully pedestrianized spaces. And all the artwork that we permit has to be on fully pedestrianized spaces and accessible to the public 24/7. So the way that we do most of what we do is with our partners. And so that's where NYC DOT Art Partners comes in. We had a sort of launch of this recently. It used to be called Art Interventions. It's now NYC DOT Art Partners. And really what we're trying to do through this program is, or through this initiative, is inspire your community through public art. And so what is NYC DOT Art Partners? It's a self-funded initiative, so it's an opportunity for communities to take really a leadership role in their community by bringing public art into the space. And so the way that it works is that we have an application online. It's on a rolling basis. We just ask that it's submitted 90 days before the date that you wish to install whatever the artwork is. If it's electrified work, however, we ask for more time because electricity can be complicated in the city of New York. We have a site selection guide on our website, which shows all the different site types that are possible. I will show you some of those in a moment. But we always recommend that if you have a site in mind, you just email us and say, like, hey, is this corner of a possible or eligible to put a sculpture in, instead of going through the trouble of submitting an application and then the site not being eligible. And really any questions that you might have, it's really helpful to just reach out and talk to us. And we can also have meetings just like I'm talking to you right now. I can talk to all different kinds of groups about what's possible. As a self-funded initiative, you are able to pick the artist and the design or the artwork yourself. We are not involved in curatorial decisions. We're just there to support with the permitting and the just making sure that everything is safe for pedestrians and for the public. And again, I've mentioned a couple times, self-funded. Project management is, yes, it's on the organization that's submitting the application, but also we have our project managers that are there to help with everything, and also being sort of the middle person between DOT, because there's a bunch of units involved other than our unit. The public realm unit, for example, if it's electric work or involves poles, we're working with traffic operations. Sometimes we're working with the bridges unit. So there's all different kinds of units that work to make sure that these projects can happen. We also encourage community engagement, and that's taking shape in many ways. That could involve the artist just kind of setting up shop somewhere and then talking to community members as they're passing by about their artwork, and then incorporating that feedback into the final design. Or sometimes partner organizations also do programming once the artwork is already up to bring the community to wherever the public art is. As partner organizations, which I will say partner organizations can be many things. It can be a business improvement district. It can be a gallery. It can be a museum. It can be a nonprofit. It can be many different kinds of organizations. But the most important part about the organization is that they are responsible for signing an agreement, and they're sort of responsible for the artwork as long as it's on display, and that includes the maintenance of it. So let's say if there's like something breaks, or there's some like major like tag or something that happens, and like we would talk to the partner to say, hey, like what's the approach to resolve this, because we want to make sure that the artwork looks the best as possible throughout the display period. And then insurance is a key one. The city, or not the city, DOT specifically asks for an general liability of 1 million to a 3 million aggregate. So that's just something to keep in mind for any partner organization that's interested in applying. And so I wanted to show you some examples of the site types, and then also just all these images show examples of artworks that have been installed on DOT property, including the sidewalk. And if you're interested in a sidewalk, please make sure it's a really wide sidewalk. Plazas, some of the most popular spaces to be activated. If you're interested in activating a plaza, please contact the existing plaza partner. They don't need to be a part of it, but they need to be in the loop since they're the maintenance partners for the plaza overall. Bridges, medians, asphalt, as I mentioned, is a really big thing that we do. A lot of people do some really big spaces. I think I'm not sure what your area covers, but maybe you mentioned meat packing. So there was an asphalt art mural at some point in meat packing, maybe like 2 years ago. And we don't ask that asphalt art murals are covered after 11 months. They could technically stay for longer if they are in good shape. Really, what our partners tend to do is that they refresh it every year with a new design. Some examples would be the Union Square Partnership. They do the bus lanes, the slip lanes, and every year they do a massive mural. And it's sort of become like the thing that they do. And then we also do streetlight poles, which can have signage or other kinds of interventions. Jersey barriers, so we only paint the side that faces the bike lane. And Jersey barriers is another one that after 11 months, you don't have to paint over. And Jersey barriers can last a really, really long time because it's vertical space, which doesn't come up that often for DOT property. And then fencing initiatives as well. So either vinyl coverings or some other kind of artwork installation on it. We actually have a webinar happening this Wednesday, 12 to 1, and you can register if you want to know more about art partners. It's even more detail that I'm giving right now. So if you're interested, it might be worth it. But also, if you are not able to attend, it will live on our website after. And this is that website. I'm gonna, in the chat, put our Flickr album and our Instagram. So those are ways to stay connected. Our Flickr is a great way to look at past projects and see what might be possible in your area or other areas. We unfortunately don't have a map of every single space available, which is why, again, I will encourage that if you're interested in a site, you could just send a picture in like a Google pin and say, hey, is this even DOT? And is it eligible for artwork? And that's it. So now I will take questions if you have any.
Thanks, Angelique. Appreciate that. I have one question, or a few questions, but so if you, let's say, so I'm an artist, I submit so you don't have a list of like, hey, like eligible sites. It's the person who has the idea and a possible location, they would need to submit that.
Yeah, so yeah, some folks just submit an application. We just encourage that. Yeah, you can send an email to, I can share my email. I guess I don't have access to the chat. I don't know how it works.
Yeah, that's okay.
So I can follow up with this, but I can share my email and anybody who has any questions can reach out. But yeah, just an email and say like, I'm interested in these polls on this street. Am I able to use those? I would reach out to the traffic operations team and they would let me know if it's eligible, and then we could move forward from there.
So knowing that people probably can't identify what's DOT property as opposed to MTA, school construction authority, parks, like everyone's got a piece of the puzzle.
Yep.
So I'm wondering sort of if something, it's a great idea, gets submitted, it's not DOT, do you all work with other agencies like the Parks Department or DCLA or other agency partners to say, hey, it's not eligible here, but why don't you talk to Parks? And maybe it's something that could happen under that agency.
Yeah, absolutely. So Parks also has their own art program. We're constantly meeting with them and we chat about different projects. And there's spaces, like there's some medians that even though it's DOT property, park manages. So yeah, we're definitely in conversations with them. So if Parks is of interest, I would just send them over to the person who manages that program. MTA, I also in communication with them. We don't often connect folks to the MTA, but this does happen for sure. Even DOT folks, it's hard to know what is DOT versus Parks versus MTA. It's like really commingled everywhere. So it does take some sort of researching to make sure that who is like the jurisdiction in a space.
Mm-hmm. Got it. Okay.
Yeah, Matt, and it's Colleen. Just to add to that, I mean, we have our land use division and they always confirm jurisdiction of properties. And in the past, we've worked very closely with the Port Authority to do artwork on their property. So it's not an issue because a lot of these agencies, they love the collaboration, just to beautify their structures.
Yeah, no, it's great to hear that an idea doesn't necessarily die after submitting it, but it can be passed along to the right agency that's got jurisdiction. Why don't we go around this way? Thanks.
Yeah, this is such a cool program and you guys do really, really cool work. On 40th Street, DOT recently did a bike lane there that looks absolutely phenomenal. It's bi-directional between the West Side Highway and 11th Avenue. And it's one of the most dead streets we have in our district. There's no retail, there's no ground floor activity at all. Some bus depot on one side, the Javits Center on the other. And there's this great concrete bike divider that's not paved. I just put on your radar, it would just add so much more color.
Submit an application.
Yeah, it might. That'd be so great to have a pop of color on that block. That really, really needs it. Thank you for this program, it's great.
I was gonna say, I will follow up with links, with all the important links to be sent to you. I just want to underscore again our site selection guide that would have the most helpful information in identifying what is DOT property. Even if we won't know exactly, it would be the most helpful in knowing that like, okay, this is likely DOT versus MTA.
Good. You go around the table? Sure.
Thank you, great program, I have no questions, thank you.
I do have a question kind of piggybacking off of Matt's question. In terms, I think it's great that Parks also has a program as well. So if I'm an artist and I want to know who's in charge of, is there any resource like a map that says, okay, if I want to do something here, that this is DOT versus Park, or do I have to submit an application and then you'll direct me to who to go to?
Just an email. No need to submit an application if you just want to know what the site is. Like if the site is I would say like Parks is probably a little easier to know if it's Parks, because if you go on the Parks website, there's pretty much a list of everything that's Parks. DOT does not have that because it's literally the streets. So it's a little harder as opposed to Parks are kind of contained spaces. But yeah, you just send an email and say like, hey, this is a spot I'm interested in. And then we can like guide you whether it's DOT or not.
Perfect. And then I'm sorry if you said this already, but is there an additional charge for the artist to do something like this? Like what do the costs look like?
So for our partners initiative, there has to be an organization who partners with an artist. So it has to be like a two-part thing. So you would have to either work with a local organization, with a gallery, or just somebody else, so sort of an entity to then put the artwork in place. But we do not charge. There is no fee for the permit to install. There's these other requirements, but there's no like money involved in getting the work installed, other than like what it requires to obviously pay the artist. The organization has to pay the artist, has to pay for fabrication, installation, all those costs. But DOT does not take a fee for the installation.
Got it. Perfect. Thank you so much. This is a really great program.
And sorry, as an artist, we have open calls specifically for artists. So artists can submit either past work samples to be considered for future projects, or you can submit proposals for specific things. So.
Do teenagers ever do this?
I'm sorry?
Good question. Oh, I thought you were answering. Oh, no. I'm sorry. Are there teenagers who do this?
Teenagers?
Yes.
I think there have been projects in the past in which schools, like students, have worked again with an organization to put together an artwork that then gets installed. So yes, I think this has happened before. But I don't have an example exactly in mind, but I know it has happened before.
Okay. Thank you.
So there's no age eligibility requirement, like if students wanted to do this, is there like an age that they have to be of to participate?
So no, I think a recommendation would be like they would still need to be a professional artist involved in the process. So a professional artist that is somehow sort of guiding and like bringing the students together to then formulate what this design would be. That would be the thing. But definitely not a thing with like ages. It's just about having a sort of leader in the space to make sure that everything works out. But I think it's definitely possible.
Thank you.
A very cool program, very excited. you showed like a map earlier, I don't know, of the projects. I mean, I'm so curious, because I've actually seen, I don't know if I knew that that was DOT art, but I don't, like, for instance, the elephants in meatpacking.
Not us, that was Sapo.
That's not, that wouldn't be, okay.
Yeah.
So, yeah, what's in CB4, like, that you guys have done recently that we would be, like, we could look at?
I don't know what CB4
Maybe-
falls under. What is it?
No, I was just gonna say, well, CB4 is Chelsea,
And
Hudson Yard.
Colleen knows, they're Colleen. Yeah. Colleen, do you know of any projects like this in our community board?
Like with HYHK,
So in the past, in the past, we were able to work with HYHK, which is the bid, to do some beautification on barriers that properties of Amtrak. And I know they've reached out to us recently, so we're looking into that. But again, we have to get permission from, the agencies to do this. And I think I recently received a request from Councilmember Botcher's office to paint a barrier on our bridge structure. And again, I'm confirming that as well, and we'll follow up with his office. But yes, we do get requests.
probably those your bridges are probably Amtrak.
Yes, yeah.
One question is, there's little signs that you put on the street signs. I've never seen artwork like that, like artwork posted like that. How, like, do you get like an entire street worth of signs, or what does the execution of those street signs look like?
So it depends. We have done, so for Car Free Earth Day last year, DOT commissioned signage, and that signage was all across the 5 boroughs. So it was like hundreds of signs that were all over the 5 boroughs. But I will say polls are slightly challenging because anything that has any traffic lights, so whether it's like a light at the top or whether it's like a pedestrian walking sign, that makes it ineligible to put a sign. But you might be able to find a long street that has a bunch of mid-block posts, and those are the best. And then, yeah, you just can either create your own signs or you can work with the DOT sign shop to create signs that go on the poles. But folks also have created interventions of other kinds, like sort of sculptural pieces that get attached to the poles, or even sort of flag kind of things. So the possibilities are endless, really, like as long as you're creative, and we'll try to work with you to figure out how to install it, even if it's something that we haven't done before.
Great. Are there any other questions from committee members, or?
I just have one other question. So, because now that I'm thinking about it, I'm like, have I seen any of these before? And I just wanted to know, is there any way, if you do see them, is there any way to know who actually did the artwork? Is it on the actual installation itself?
So 2 things. Again, our Flickr, it's like a great place for seeing the archive of all the projects we've done. And also you can follow us on Instagram. We're posting all the current and some, archival projects too. But yes, we have a sign. We have a sort of standard DOT blue sign that will say, like, this is the name of the artwork by this artist, description of the artwork, and then it will say who the partner organization is, or if it's fully commissioned by DOT, and it'll have all that information. It should be like literally next to it or on it.
Got it. Perfect, thank you.
I would say one really big example right now is if you go to Park Row, there is at least, I know that's lower and not in your area, but if you find yourself in Park Row, there's 4 projects kind of next to each other in literally Park Row, and even in the stairwell going up the Brooklyn Bridge.
And just, did you mention that you're having an open call for artists to submit?
So right now we have an open call for muralists. So anybody who is interested in either painting asphalt, bike barriers, or even a wall. And so that is open through the 16th. So I think that's this Sunday. And it's an RFQ, so it's about submitting past work samples.
Okay, great. Well, we would love to have more artists represented in this program, so we would be happy to share that.
Amazing.
So if there's anything you can send to, maybe email it to Jesse, and he can then put it out on the community board's e-newsletter, and we can just help get the word out to folks in the district.
Okay. Yeah, I will send you all the links.
And Matt, I did send Jesse last week, I think it was last week or this week. No, it was last week, the information of the webinar to share so that folks can join us.
Yeah, sorry, I kind of stepped away. I'm happy
Thanks,
to
Jesse.
share that with
Thank you,
everybody.
Jesse.
And before you go, we actually do have one hand raised from the public, so let's bring over Mike.
Bringing him over now.
Hi, Mike. Can you hear us?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Great. Very quickly, does the DOT ever sponsor music programming in association with any of the DOT art or in any other capacity?
Yeah, so not through the art program, but there's signature events and then also open streets. So yes, there are other ways of DOT sponsoring performances. So I would recommend checking out the Car Free Earth Day right now. There's a programming open call. So that is where you would apply.
I didn't catch that. What should I check out?
Car Free Earth Day on the DOT website. They have an open call for programming partners.
Earth Day. Okay. And just so I'm clear on your DOT art, it was not clear to me whether DOT funds the art or whether the sponsors outside of DOT fund the art.
So for partners, the external partners are funding. We do have funded initiatives, but they work very differently and they mostly are directed towards supporting artists.
Okay. So, and just so again, so I'm clear, where should I go to look for this Car Free Earth Day?
It's on the DOT website. Again, I don't have access to the chat, so I can't drop a link, but I can send the link after.
Okay. Thank you.
Well, I think that's all the questions we have from the committee. So we really appreciate this presentation and knowing more about this program. We're happy to get the word out. Hopefully we can get some great art projects happening in the district.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Good. On to new business and old business. I actually have something. I wanted to start the discussion here on the Colored Girls School number 4. We had Eric Washington, who's a historian, visit us about 2 years ago to talk about this. And basically the history of the school is the school was opened, I think in 1850 to serve African-American school children at a time when public schools were still segregated. It was open for about 50 years and then it was closed when the schools were no longer segregated. The building still exists on West 17th Street. It is a pre-Civil War building, so obviously it has so much history. It survived Reconstruction. So many notable people have come out of there, and we want this building to continue. We want to save this building. This building was landmarked with the help of the Chelsea Land Use Committee in 2023, I believe, was that it? So since for many years, the school has been under the Department of Sanitation. I'm not really clear why they were using it. So I guess that's why it's under them. So last month, they came to Chelsea Land Use to talk about the refurbishment of the building. They were given $6 million by the city to do some work. However, the roof is still leaking. The plans that they gave just were unsatisfactory for a variety of reasons. I won't go into too much detail. The Land Use Committee is setting up a working group. So if anybody's interested in that, They haven't given us any dates yet. But I just want to throw this out there so we can all start thinking about it. No, there are no plans for what the space is going to be used for, and I think that that's where we can really come in with our voices. But I do want to ask Jesse a question because Jesse wasn't here at the last meeting, and somebody had raised the issue of, well, really the question of why is this project still under the Department of Sanitation, and if there's any possibility of moving it at some point, maybe not right now, because nobody wants to slow down the momentum, but at some point moving it to Department of Cultural Affairs or somehow getting them involved, because one of the problems with the plans that we received, and Ina may want to talk about this a little bit more, or Shanice was also at the meeting, that they're really not looking at it in terms of how can it sort of accommodate a large group of people that would function as a cultural center, right? So the stairway, for instance, was too large. It took up too much space. It was very sort of long and narrow. And the biggest issue is that they're saying to us that they can't do anything into the roof until they get a TCO, which is
Temporary certificate of occupancy.
right. Well, actually, a certificate of occupancy, they didn't say temporary. And I don't know how they're gonna do that with so many open violations. I mean, that just doesn't make any sense to me. So they said they were gonna go back and look at some of this information. The Chelsea Landers decided not to write a letter. They're gonna do a working group instead and then get on the phone with the Department of Sanitation. But to make a long story short, I just wanted to ask Jesse, like, what is the possibility of something like that happening, and just getting another agency involved that sort of understands cultural spaces, what the needs are, because I don't want us to get too far into the plans of, construction on this building. Even the exterior wasn't kept it didn't look anything like what it used to look like. I mean, this is a pre-war building, and the whole idea was to keep that beauty of it, because it's very rare that we actually have a school that has survived all of this time. So they weren't looking at it in terms of that. So what can we do? So I'll throw it out to Jesse first, and then we'll come back to the committee and discuss it.
Yeah, I mean, I think the good news is that you've got multiple multiple members on this committee that sit on Clue, which is good. I think that's really helpful to be guys. You guys should be coordinated. I think the end all be all right now is that I think you're right that the money has been dedicated to sanitation to fix it. Sanitation is keeping it for now. They have as of most recently have started to motivate on doing what we want them to do. I agree. I am frustrated that they had not done the repairs to the roof sooner. But I'm glad that they are at least starting to get ready to be presenting a preservation plan to LPC about doing the interior work that does need to be done. I agree. I think we can keep on talking. I think a working group would be helpful because I don't think it's just going to happen overnight. And I think the issue is that it is a building that is not a very large building, and it's in a very specific space that doesn't have any parking and anything like that. So the idea of moving it to another agency that while it needing still a lot of work is, I just think, going to be very unattractive from another agency perspective. So I think we need to keep on to sanitation for them to do the work that needs to preserve the building, to keep the building from getting any worse damage. I'm happy to share the reports and all this information that Clue has with this committee, so they understand what level of damage we're talking about. We're talking about significant, ceilings and floors falling through, roof damage, water damage, things like that. So I think the sanitation has the plan to and we can disagree with this plan, but they have this plan to basically, clean it up as much as they can and create basically a white box interior for some use. And they don't really know what that use is yet either, I don't think. And so, there's pros and cons with any decision you want to make. If we want to try to preserve as much as we can interior wise, that does limit the choices of use, But I also understand that turning it into a, a kind of, a bland white box interior doesn't allow for any of the, the history or you have to recreate the history inside kind of thing. So, I do think we should keep on talking with Clue. I do think we should discuss maybe with Clue if you guys have all of our letters have kind of leaned in towards a real public use of the space, right? We don't certainly want it just to be used as like a break room for sanitation workers. Not to say that they don't deserve break rooms, but that could be done someplace else, not in this historically important school. And so I think we should just keep at it. Honestly, I think that's what needs to happen. I will say though, I am optimistic that sanitation is finally responding and working on this. The response to our letter, the written response to our letter that the Clue committee had written, a year ago, I think at this point, was helpful. I mean, it took a year for them to respond, but they actually responded with some very clear information. I think the presentations that they did give last month were helpful. People are thinking about this and working on it. They hired an architect. So I think these are all positive things. We just need to help, like guide the ship, in the right direction. And I think that's working with Eric. I think that's working, with both. When I say Eric, I mean Eric Washington, but also Eric Botcher, who obviously was the lead in trying to get this, landmarked and the money from the city and the mayor and stuff. So, but I think it's all good. I think the attention on it is good. Yeah, and I, I think until it gets all kind of cleaned up and fixed, I think moving it to another agency is kind of like the next step. Honestly, I don't think Department of Cultural Affairs wants to take on a building that they have to then do significant repairs on and have to have on their balance sheet, and so I think we are where we are, and let's get it cleaned up, fixed, and then let's really keep guiding the ship towards a use that we all are happy with.
For this task force, I mean, sounds like it's just kind of being put together, but so we're not anywhere near having like a date, like, hey, there's nothing.
Not yet.
No. All right.
So, what is sanitation use the building for right now? It's just sitting empty?
Yeah.
So like,
Yeah.
Basically,
It's unusable. You can't use it. You can't use the building. The building is unusable.
yeah.
Like it'd be dangerous to put anybody into that situation.
Yeah. Right now it is, but up until it got to the danger point, that's what it was used for.
So is like the interior intact at all? Like is there a staircase? Is there like floorboards?
Can't go in there at
Yeah,
all.
there is.
Yeah.
In part, you could go on a tour on it if you wanted to, and they did do that a
Yeah.
while back, but it's not something. And sanitation hasn't used it really for many years, and so and I think we have to remember, and Max as being part of Parks Department can know this. It can end up in someone's shop without it being clear as to like what its purpose, and this doesn't really serve a purpose for sanitation anymore. So it's not their priority. Their priorities are obviously dealing with trash and recycling and snow and all those other things. And so we're gonna have to, like I said, that's why I'm glad that things are happening. They've hired an architect. We're working on this. This is good news, and I think we just have to keep on them and politely, course correct as we normally do.
No, and I agree, and I'm gonna get to Inga in just a second, but I totally agree, and I'm really happy that there's movement. I guess what they had said is, in terms of the inside, there's really nothing that they can salvage. I mean, I think there was a piece of a wall that they could frame, just to say this is what it looked like. But the exterior seems like some of that could still be salvaged, but with the plans that we got, it just didn't look the same. So, I'm like, yes.
The committee was very unhappy with their presentation. Their architects weren't looking at it from a historical preservation at all. They were looking at it as a functional, we're gonna do this, this, and this. They looked at there was a tour with Eric Botcher, Eric Washington, and the community board, and Chelsea, State of Chelsea. over 2 years ago, because of the roof leaking, they needed the roof fixed, so the money was given immediately in order to fix the roof and stop further damage. That didn't happen. They're still over 2 years sitting on it going, well, we can't do that until we fix everything. But they could fix the roof, patch it, they could stop the leak. So the floors are deteriorating more. A lot of that wood isn't gonna be able, the timbers are rotting that they could have salvaged. So there's less and less to salvage. And their plan that they came, it was a very small little space, obviously, but they were gonna almost cut it in half by putting in 2 staircases and an elevator, so you have this narrow corridor. What are you gonna use a space like that for? You wouldn't even realize that it was still a school. So the committee was very unhappy with their architect's vision, which wasn't the vision.
Right.
So that's why we asked them to come back, and I thought, you guys, this was when Eric Botcher's, when they all walked through, it was talked about as an educational space or an art space.
Cultural space.
Something cultural, something more closely related to what it was. And now it just looks like a little tiny hallway with what they're doing, so I thought you guys might wanna get in on this.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. So, you know, going back to Jesse's point, I guess that's the most that we can do is go on the working group and say that, you know, even though we don't know what the space is going to be used for, but at least voice that and the importance of retaining the exterior of the building.
Exactly.
It doesn't make any sense.
As much as possible, even if they saved some of the timbers, there are a few that they said they could save, they could display them. I mean, it's just, it's old wood, you just put it in the wall and show it, something. But they're letting it over 2 years later, it just keeps, look at the weather, it's just flooding every day. It's-
Right.
They should have fixed it, so the committee was upset with that, because the money was given right away to stop further destruction.
Nothing's happened. Right.
Yeah. So, that's all.
Yes.
I did want to just add, I mean, I don't think another agency's gonna want this, but Jesse, have they ever reached out to the Historic House Trust at all?
I'm sorry, Max, can you say that again? I didn't hear you.
Yeah, I think you're right, another agency's not gonna want this, but have they ever reached out, or has anyone ever reached out to the Historic House Trust to see if they can look into this building at all?
I don't know. I mean, we
Yeah.
you know, Clue has the longest history with this building, and I think really it was about really just getting eyes on it from a city perspective. And so hold on one second, I'm sorry, I have a someone's
I'm
not
sorry.
being
That's okay.
there.
No, I think they are the perfect organization for this. I mean, the Historic House Trust is tasked with basically preserving the city's historic buildings, and they kind of modified their mission from originally just preserving houses and manors to preserving, you know, cultural zeitgeists, like the Little Red Lighthouse or the Merchant Mayor's house downtown. So it's not just houses they preserve, and they're a public-private partnership. It's not just the Parks Department. They really are a public-private organization.
And they do city-owned.
If they use, if that's the whole purpose,
That's
yes,
great.
and because they can get capital funding from the city.
Yes, that's great.
So they might be the perfect partner for this.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's
Okay.
excellent.
Yes.
No, I agree with Max and Liddy brought that up, because I was thinking, I didn't know about that justification, I was thinking in my mind something like that. So maybe, somehow, I don't know, the mayor's office or somebody could immediately stop the further deterioration by
That's why
going
they
in.
gave the money.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying, you gave them money and saying now they have to go in, like, in a private building, if the landlord doesn't provide heat, if the boiler breaks, HPD comes in and they put a temporary boiler in front. So now that these people have an active sanitation, somebody should just be sent in and just do it.
Right.
And I don't know if there's such an agency or such a thing that can be done, and then there's, and also keep in the loop to the Historic House Trust. Because I think that's a key thing that Max brought up, and that's something that should really be put at the forefront.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Is there anything else? Jesse, do you want to talk about like New York Public Library at all? Cause I know it was a very time sensitive issue, and is it something, I know we might get an update from them later, but.
Yeah, I was hoping to have a more concrete response for you guys. They did initially, you know, we wrote an administrative letter expressing our concerns about the length of time of our two libraries being basically out of commission, overlapping for such a time. They did respond initially through email saying that they are working on it and they really want to minimize that. I was hoping to get something more in writing and everything to you guys, but unfortunately I don't have it. But I do think we should keep it on the agenda, maybe for a follow-up officially for next month.
Okay, yeah, that would be great.
And if I get something in writing beforehand, obviously I will send it around to everybody.
Okay, excellent. That's great.
I do just since I got the mic for a moment, I do think it would be great if maybe we did and I'll do it. I'll send it around to you guys. It's not anything more work for you guys to do, but a thank you letter to DOE.
Yes.
And maybe with some guiding language to saying looking forward to having them come back, at a certain time, because I think that was really helpful. I don't know how everybody else felt in the room, but we had just not had that level of response to our budget requests from DOE downtown. We certainly have had it from the superintendent level. We certainly have it from principal level, but we never had that kind of level of operational response from down to DOE. So I'd like to keep that going and have that foster relationship.
So, are we're sending them, you're gonna send them a thank you email, or should we do it?
Yeah, I would like to do an administrative letter.
Okay, great,
Again,
okay.
and it doesn't require a full board vote or anything like that, but highlighting the three folks that came to speak. They were extremely, obviously, knowledgeable, and so, and just saying we are looking forward to having them come back in the fall or whenever you guys want them to come back.
Down to the classroom blocks, I was very impressed, quite honestly.
That's
Okay,
great.
yeah.
Idea.
So I do want to talk about one other item. Not sure if we, I don't like to chase down everything that Washington is doing, but the new administration is talking about shutting down the Department of Education on a federal level. So that would greatly impact our Title I funding, and we do have 3 Title I schools in our district, probably more. I'm just talking about elementary school. I don't even know if it's worth responding to this, if that's even a possibility that could even happen, but I'm just throwing it out there because I feel remiss in not saying anything. So thoughts, Jesse, Matt? I mean, I just, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it's a scary time, and I think there's so much information, and yet there's no information that's coming out, so it's hard to separate fact from fiction and what's happening. But it's good to be raised and discussed, because it could have major implications for funding for our Title I schools, like you said.
But I got the sense that, because this is all like law, a lot of the funding that still exists, that's been approved by Congress. These are all laws, right?
Well, they said the same thing about international aid, was congressionally approved, and they fired basically everyone from the agency.
That's true.
So I don't think, just because the money's been allocated, doesn't mean that it's safe. So yeah, but Josephine, did you have something that you wanted to?
I just want to add, what have we done in the past when there are federal issues that may affect us, Jesse? Do we actually respond to this?
Or a COVID thing? That'll be the only recent thing.
But the elimination of the Department of Education has to get approved by Congress before, he can't just eliminate it. So I think right now there's no action to be taken because it has not, it's like his win.
And then I do,
Yeah. I mean, it looks like he's gonna go through it, and Linda McMahon is like all for it.
The thing is, it's just because, just not, even though Congress allocates this funding, he just doesn't give it funding. A lot of things are dying the vine. That's what happened with USA. The people that we should really talk to would be Congress member Jerry Nadler, Kirsten Gillibrand, Senator Chuck Schumer. Those are people, but they're in the minority party. So I mean, so between now and whatever let's say the Democrats take things back, they wouldn't really be able to act until January of 2027. So I don't know what our place would be. I mean, we like trade, based on our. Unfortunately, we're like left in a minnow in the ocean. With this. I mean, it would be symbolic. If we maybe said something to Nat, to settle. But they're already going to agree with us.
So that we understand. All right.
Or we ask them how we can help them, maybe someone from Natalie can say, this is what you can do. Even if it's very small, something that we wouldn't think of.
I mean, we did respond to sort of the overturning of schools as being, sort of sanctuary or soft areas for, that ICE couldn't go on and arrest children. We did respond to that, so I'm wondering, is this something that we should respond to? Jesse's talking, but we can't hear you.
No, sorry. Yeah, I mean, I think, and the audio is going a little bit in and out. So I had a lot of things just happen all at once here. So I apologize. I had to step away a couple times. David's comment made me think, why don't we get someone to talk to us about it for next month? Why don't we reach out to either, Jerry Nadler's office or Chuck Schumer's office? We certainly have had folks like them come to talk to us about other issues. So I think, why don't we do that? And so we, get an understanding of what is the detail, similar like what we did with Gail Brewer when have her come and talk to us about what her perspective on what's really going on with the teacher shortages and where to focus, where the gaps are. And so I think maybe that would be helpful for us to really understand what their strategies are and what they think and where they're weakest and where they're strongest. That's my only thought.
No, it's a good suggestion. Wendy, sorry, you have your hand up. Were you going to echo? You just wanted to echo what Jesse said, or?
Exactly. Yep, we're on the same page. I think given how fraught this topic is and also how convoluted, our best bet is reach out to our local electeds, see who's willing to come to a meeting. I think we could also ask them if they have any immediate next steps. They might have their own responses that they're currently planning. I know since we don't know it right now and time is probably of the essence on this, it may be something that needs to then go up to exec and whatever. But I would say that's our next step. Are they doing something that we can help put our just sort of support behind, and or can they come and speak to us about what could be helpful to hear from a local community board?
Sounds good.
Excellent. Great. Okay.
Anything else? Yes. Second, someone second. Second. Okay, thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you. Thanks, Jesse. Thanks, Wendy.
Thank you, guys.
Yes.